Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out all our shows and content at hippocratic-collective.com. I am so excited to have Joan Chan here with me today, one of my favorite people ever to podcast with. I feel like this is like approaching our 5th time or something like that.
Yeah.
What I realized too, Joan, is that I almost match you. I did the big chop on my hair. I'm not quite at a bob, if you would categorize yourself as bob level.
Yes.
But I'm getting there. Is your hair naturally that curly?
Yeah. That's like, lessons in authenticity. I used to like blow dry and straighten my hair all the time. But then during the pandemic, you have your fuck it era. And so you scrunch it and it's just this.
I love it. It looks like you curled it with a curling iron. And so, but also it makes me think that our hair length is probably more similar too.
Yes.
Because you see mine air dries like dead straight. And
yeah,
I do feel like people keep being like, have you sorted out how you're going to style it yet? And I'm like, I have just air dried it, but it air dries kind of okay.
No, it looks great.
Yeah, we're a work in progress.
Always.
So what I love about Joan is that she is the creating space master. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. Creating space, all these concepts. I would definitely love if you could give us all a refresher on like the 75% rule. Yeah. And of course, selfishly, the reason why I'm like, oh yeah, for the people who like, cannot get this figured out. Just like for them, refresh it. Like, of course, I know.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. This is all going to be asking for a friend because, of course, I left medicine 3 months ago. I have a completely different job. My professional life looks so different. But what does not look that different is that I am being worked to the bone and like it feels like the ulcers are coming back. And the best way I can kind of describe that is that to anyone who thinks that becoming your own boss means that your boss isn't an asshole anymore, I have some bad news for you.
You may. And the good news is you then do have more agency to adjust the boss approach because it's the call coming from inside the house now, right?
I mean, the evidence is damning. And so, yes, please, if you could kind of introduce the creating space concept and then we'll get into 75%.
Yes. Yeah. So I love talking about creating space. The origin story of how this concept and the 75% rule and capacity came to be is like, so I'm a family physician. I practice in Ontario in Canada. And a few years ago, a few years into the pandemic, I was asked to give a talk about how family physicians were going to fit in all of the sick children that were filling up emergency rooms because, masks were off and things were popping. We were running out of Tylenol. We were running out of amoxicillin. Like a bunch of things were like out of stock. And so they're like, hey, family physicians, like, how are you going to fit all these patients in so that we can save the healthcare system? And I was asked to give a talk about that. And I really was thinking about how do we do this? Like, how does this actually functionally work? We are already full. Like our schedule, we weren't sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
Like we already had all of the workload. And it made me think of the concept of surge capacity, like the idea that, say you have some sort of water holding system. It's probably wise that you don't fill it up to the brim always. Otherwise, if there's a sudden surge of water needing to be held, overflow you go. And yet in our system, we have zero surge capacity. And each of us as physicians, certainly us in primary care, it wasn't like anything about the system was encouraging us or demanding that we hold surge capacity. And what that meant is now we're like doing Sophie's choice about which of these like sick kids we're going to fit in. And that feels terrible. Talk about like moral distress, moral injury, that sort of thing. And I was thinking about how in other systems, like I was looking up, like, what does Walmart do about this problem? Do they ask their underpaid minimum wage employees to work triple shifts around Thanksgiving and Christmas? No, they hire like thousands more people. Like that's one way you can create surge capacity.
Yeah, like seasonally, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
The holiday hiring.
Yes, but we don't have that. We don't have a backbench. So
Even though
then
we know that the winter is like our hot season. I mean, in
this is
ENT,
predictable.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Oh my
It's busy
gosh.
season.
Yes. ENT, I can imagine everyone like their tonsillar abscesses, like all the crazy
Yeah.
things that can happen. And yet we're not like thinking strategically, like we know this is going to happen. So it's a scramble every year. It feels terrible to everyone. So I thought, enough. How I'm going to clearly have to do this for myself, because that's what I have learned just in general. The system ain't changing for me. I'm changing it for myself so I can stay sane and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy my work in healthcare. And so, how do I create space in my schedule and hold that space so that when surges of issues come up, I have temporary space in my schedule to
Mm-hmm.
actually have people come to me. And so that's the origin story of how creating space came up. I created this decision-making framework that I realize also then can apply to all areas of your life. And if you apply it to all areas of your life, it actually works best. So not only in my clinic schedule, but my total global schedule, even like what I do with my free time. If I'm constantly overscheduling or maximizing my scheduling of my free time, again, then someone gets sick or something new
Mm-hmm.
comes up, I don't have any space. So that's where the 75% rule came. Because for me, I've noticed if my calendar is about 75% full and I hold about a quarter of my time to be like blank free space, and I don't like actually sit down and do the calculations, it's more of like a vibe thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that feels good. That means that say something comes up, I can move things around and I have space to put into them. It just means that they're like my schedule's actually more flexible and movable. And when nothing goes wrong, I then have a quarter of my schedule to lie down, to learn more Taylor Swift songs on the ukulele, to go for a walk, to whatever, like pick up a new hobby or do like read another like rom-com book. Like, and it just gets to
Yes.
be pure
Yes.
pleasure and enjoyment. Oh, darn. Like, it's win-win.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And again, I feel like maybe a year ago you first described this to me. So like I've been taught about this before. I just I don't know. I'm definitely that person where I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. You've sold me. And then like I cannot, there's something that prevents me from putting it into practice. And I do think I've identified, like I'm not like totally learned helplessness. Like I've
Mm,
identified different reasons why I think that I maybe am not excelling at it.
hmm.
Number one, scarcity mindset is very real. Like I
Huge.
work at a new startup. We're a couple months old.
Yeah.
There absolutely is like this pressure. Like I wake up every single day and I'm like, okay, how are we going to put the pedal to the metal today?
Hmm.
Um, every day. I mean, and I do think that, of course, situationally and industrially, there is something to that. Like, I think that probably a lot of people in their startup era feel that way and their schedules look that way.
Hmm.
However, I also know the problem with that because being like, well, this is just a really, really busy 3 or 6 month period. I have been fallaciously telling myself that for consecutively 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm aware, you can see I'm at like maybe level 2, or I'm like,
Hmm.
in this realm, I'm like the equivalent of like a 3-year-old. Like I have some discovery and I can kind of be like, that might not be right. I'm going to do it this way, but like I see some cracks there. The other thing I wanted to mention that is a huge problem for me, because I was reflecting in preparation for today's conversation, I am a huge inbox zero person.
Mm.
I have lived that way for 33 years.
Yep.
I have had to change that in the past like month and a half. And I know like you're you are in charge of all admin at the HC, like just getting to work with you, that has been such a privilege. But internally, I had to manage a different, like if there's maybe some texts unread, if there's some emails, like not at inbox zero.
Yeah.
I think that what's crazy is I have just been very much machine learning and like machine operating. That's why the body and like the mind are not doing that great, because I treat it like a machine
Yeah.
where my triage skills are good. They're good clinically, they're good non-clinically. So I'd look at what's on the docket, triage everything, do things in like, I think the really thoughtful order, the correct kind of like maybe things that require more lift, maybe smaller tasks, less vital tasks later in the day. But what I never did until recently is be like, this doesn't need done today. That is totally new for me. And again, like even you may have noticed that like in my communications, like I used to be if I'm in receipt of it before I go to sleep, this will be like addressed or really ideally completed.
Yep.
And I think that has something to do with the ulcers. But anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts. So,
Yeah.
but they're not mine. They're for a friend. So, like, if I told you my friend was having problems with all these things, like, what would you say them?
I know. Well, and I wonder if that scarcity mindset, that notion that the only way to get to what you want is full speed ahead 100% of the time, like a train,
Yeah.
like, and that drives the inbox zero. Like, that's a really specific, and the more specific the example, the better, really, because you see it, just like writ large on your life. You're like, oh, this is a perfect example. I imagine it would be somewhat driven by that same scarcity mindset, because scarcity mindset is what if. The what if is driving a scarcity mindset. The scarcity mindset, like if you think about it in like survival terms, it's like I'm starving, and I'm going to die. And so every time I see an apple, I'm going to eat it. Right. And so there is wisdom in the scarcity mindset if that's actually true. Like if you're in a desert, don't be like procrastinating eating the apple you find or you're going to die. Like, let's do it. And we've been like deeply socialized to have false scarcity mindsets a lot. And so what that means is like, then we can be driving ourselves thinking that like the only way forward is in like a pure, like gobble up everything we can get mindset. And work being like a very classic one. And it's so messed up because like, there's just infinite amount of work you could do. There's infinite amount of money you could make. There's an infinite amount of prestige you could earn. There's an infinite amount of people you could impress. And so like you're doomed if we're thinking scarcity at something that's technically abundant in terms of like, there's not even a limit of the amount you could do, and you're only looking at the lack. We're going to spend a life of lack if we look for lack, right? So super understandable to have it. And, sprints and times of hyperproductivity. Like if you think about a farmer has times of harvesting and going hard. And then they have times where they have to allow the plants to grow. And if they're like micromanaging the plants are going to die, right? Like, so, and also they know they have to sleep and they have to eat. So like kind of using that analogy, like we don't have to now think that every day is one task a day and then the rest of the time we like lie very still. Like it can flow. People are going to have different preferences themselves. We're all the same in that we're all humans and human bodies, but I feel like everyone's like natural rhythms are different. And so it's more about finding your natural rhythm. So the 75% rule is a rule for me, but I also notice, so like during the summer, it's I mean, there's going to be times of much more spaciousness if I'm off completely. And there's certain times in the fall and the spring where I'm like, oh, these are like more fulsome times. Maybe it is more 80 or 90%. And that's okay, right? So just to even dispel the initial expectation, like it gets to flow in a way that feels good for you. But the point is that it feels good for you. So just to define what the ultimate objective is, that's the objectives, is you actually get to feel good. When you work under your capacity, you're not chronically in ulcer, stressed out, buzzing with a million thoughts a mile a minute mode. You actually get to feel like life is spacious. You're in control, relaxed. What a notion. So there's some rewarding reasons to consider it. And what do you have to sacrifice along the way? And so part of what you have to sacrifice is some ideals that you've been really sold are the keys to the kingdom. So the inbox zero is such a perfect one.
Totally.
Even like what you define as inbox zero. Like what if you really just love that satisfaction of literally having zero inbox, but the way you get to it now is like literally what you're doing, delegating. So you're not tasking it, you're delegating. Some you're just deleting.
I have started occasionally just deleting emails since you told me that was an option. I remember I literally reached out to Joan. I was like,
Oh my
This is
gosh.
kind of like vague and not really an ask. Like, this is not any,
Yeah,
from, maybe a bot. She was like, first of all, I think you might be talking to a robot.
I
Like, this
know.
might be like a virus. Like, I wouldn't. And I was like,
Yes.
wow, that's crazy. Like, I don't have to reply to them. And so, agreed. If, if there's not a specific ask, that's really helpful.
hmm It's actually like I'm thinking, so like the decision making framework has like the four components, right? Knowing what you want to protect because it's the thing that you're here to do. It's the thing that fills you up. It is full of, it's going to energize you and actually expand your capacity. So that's one bucket of your list. The second one is things that you want to do, that you commit to do, but you're going to do them with great mediocrity, bare minimum, in and out, whatever that looks like. The third is delegate. There are things that you want to be connected to, but you recognize you do not have the capacity to do them. So you're going to ask other people to do them. And the fourth is quit or delete. The inbox is a perfect way to think of this, right? So
Yeah, to put the
these
four
are
buckets.
and you'll get a sense like, okay, I can do a really meaty 3 emails a day. I'm sure yours is, you might have a much higher capacity than me, but like to really do meaty, like thoughtful, not ask ChatGPT to do for you, like you're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
certain number per day. And so
Mm-hmm.
if more than those come in, you might be protecting that by actually not responding till tomorrow because you're like, I'm only going to
Mm.
do the thoughtful, delicate ones this many per day before I start to like lose my mind. And so that's how I protect my time is actually metering out and pacing out how often I do those. Then there's the ones where it's like, yeah, no problem. Blah, blah, blah. There's a certain
Yeah.
number of those. There's others where you're like, oh, this needs thought. This needs someone to like use their fuller brain, but it can't
Mm-hmm.
be me. And so then you
Mm-hmm.
forward it to me or someone else.
Yeah.
And then there's ones where like, this is junk. This is nothing. And then no one has to look at it and you delete it. Like the email's a perfect place to apply this matrix actually, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that helps me too because even in thinking about that matrix, like, yeah, if you're trying to apply it everywhere at once, I definitely don't find that I can like learn things that way. I have
Mm,
to really sit with the framework and then like apply the algorithm in kind of a discrete space, like maybe
yes.
email, and then I feel like once I have my teeth in that, then I can broaden it. But
Yes.
as a kind of well-known hothead, I don't find that I do a great job of just quickly grasping and then being able to employ under duress like new skills. Master
That's
it.
being a human for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I guess. And
Under
that's
duress is not the time to learn anything.
yeah, or just even have access to apply it. It might be like, oh,
Yes.
I've nailed this system as it
Yeah.
applies to email. And
Yeah.
then when you take it out of like email, then I'll break down again and we'll have to like reframe and kind of
Yeah.
master it again there.
Oh yeah. That sounds about right. So like, me applying this to my life, I would say that was the process. Though
Hmm.
every time it's more in my bones
Yeah.
than like when I'm like spinning with indecision about like, do I say yes or no to this invitation or whatever? Quickly, I'm like, Joan, you do this everywhere. Like, which bucket does this fall in? And like
Hmm.
if it's not an immediate yes, then it goes in the no.
Hmm.
If it keeps coming back to me, I'd be like, like, I might think about it. But like, really, the more you do it, the more it becomes like the way you think of the world. The main thing it does is it makes my yeses a lot slower because I want to filter it through this process. I know that my space I have in my schedule is worth protecting. And so it helps me take a pause for new asks coming in. It helps me be more thoughtful even about what I offer. So like when I
Yeah.
offer help, it's within certain boundaries. And I'm not just like anything you need ever. It's like, oh, and if I'm going to help, it's going to look like this. And this is what I need in order to help or whatever, right? And that actually makes me a more effective collaborator. A lot of us say yes to so many things that we
Hmm.
actually aren't going to be able to follow through fully on those commitments. And then, often like if you're a people pleaser like me and we're scared of people being mad at us, and that's why we said yes to begin with, guess what? If you say yes to too many people, like everyone's gonna be disappointed in you anyway. So disappoint them ahead of time, and at least then you'll have time to be relaxed when they're mad at you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's true. Yeah. People are never going to be pleased. So
Truth.
but also I'm not, of my million character defects, people pleasing is not one of them. I
That's
think
great.
that what's so funny as I think about basically what you're saying, going back a little bit to like what I would need to unlearn, right? Um, there's all this that needs to be unlearned.
Yeah.
And then there's also, to me, because you didn't touch on this, so I want to share from a person who's like, struggling so much to grapple with and just like employ. Because again, I say to you, I'm like, I love it. I love it. I philosophically agree. But yet, like, I will not do it. Like, clearly, I mean, just look at how I've been living my life. Like, I just will not. I refuse to try it. There's the familiarity and comfort piece of it. And we haven't talked about that yet because, like, I think I am comfortable and familiar with just one way of living and working. And, of course, my job has been my life, and they've been, like, one unhealthy, intertwined thing all this time.
Yeah.
So, like, that is actually what is comfortable to me. And what you describe, even when you're like, okay, so what if 25% of your schedule was, like, actually unscheduled time and you could fill it, like you gave 10 examples. And again, like they sounded good, but there's something very unsettling to me about like 25% unscheduled time.
Yeah.
And Colin will tell you that I've gotten better about my timetables, but they just used to be like so rigid and structured to the point of being unrealistic. And then when they'd be off by like any degree, I would lose it.
Yeah. Well, I would say like the main thing to know is like that makes so much sense. And there's deep wisdom in knowing that that means that the pace at which to continue to create space needs to be at a pace that is accessible to you. Like, it's interesting because the whole project is about finding a way to pace your life. And that includes, let's not do 100% pedal to the metal about creating space either.
Oh.
See what I mean? And so I hear you already are creating space. You're becoming less rigid in your scheduling, right? And so for you, it is probably way more accessible and therefore achievable to like 1 hour, 30 minutes. I don't know, but like 1 hour per week blank. And then probably most of the time it's going to get filled right in. And then you're like, okay. But then 1 week you're like, I did it. I've got nothing to do. What do I do? Oh, God. And then you might have an existential crisis. I'm going to warn you.
Well,
That
right,
happens.
exactly.
That's part
it might
of it.
precipitate. That might be like a load-bearing neurosis.
I know.
No,
but
I'm
that's
just kidding.
part of it.
But that makes sense. That's the revolution. That it starts with what, like,
Yeah. I
1
didn't
hour.
suddenly chop. Like, I will say, actually, the time that I suddenly chopped way more, where I was like, that's it. I'm delegating a bunch. That's it. I'm like, I chopped my clinic schedule to be way shorter. It was actually it was like a survival based reason. And that both felt good, but also was like distressing in other ways, right? And so the survival based reason, I think, have we talked about this before? I can't remember. But a couple of years ago, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah. And so he went through surgery and chemo. And that was finally, it makes sense. It's not me and my own self-fulfilling journey, but it was like, no, I need to be there. What if he ends up in hospital? We have 2 small kids at home. Like, I need to have space. I need to be replaceable. This is ridiculous that the system is set up where if my husband's in hospital, I'm now doing a Sophie's choice of like abandoning my patients or my husband. What? And so I hired the nurse practitioner. I did all those things. And so it was actually like a distress based reason that I did such a big change. I think otherwise, and I hope no one has those reasons, of course. So if instead it's very gradual and it's one little bit at a time, I actually recommend that pace better. Like, I'd rather not have like a disastrous thing happen.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, because of that familiarity thing, it often takes some kind of disruption, whether it's like a road to Damascus, sorry to bring up a biblical reference, but like a lightning bulb moment that they're like, that's it, I have to change sometimes. But it's usually more like an external like shakeup. And then they're like, okay, that's it. I've got to make different choices. You're diagnosed with an illness or something else. And so that's the extreme examples. But I believe along the way, we can just be gradually, incrementally, running towards ourselves, but at a pace that actually feels good to us. And it sounds like you're actually doing that, Frances May. So like you're crushing it.
Woo! I'm not used to all the positive feedback. No, that's very nice. And I feel like I completely second, I'm so sorry that your family went through that. I know we've talked a little bit about it before.
Yeah.
The fact that disruption is what precedes changing your life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was my own health crises. So
Yeah.
had I not ever gotten sick, I would just still be on the train that I was on.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yes, health changes and scares are a good way to be reminded of your own mortality and wake up and reevaluate your life and make changes where you need or want to.
Yeah.
I think that when we talk about the familiarity, I was actually doing a lit search before this about like stress addiction to stress. There wasn't even as much as I would have liked like out there. I mean, I'm sure I could do a deeper dive, but like I've heard allusions to it before. It was funny because in one of the first papers I read, they were like, absolutely, this is very real. Here's how it impacts the HPA axis. But they were like, blunted stress responses can also be harmful. And I was annoyed. I was like, okay, so just the right amount of stress. Just like get the get the A+ level of stress. And then like you're golden. I was like,
nah, that sounds suspicious, actually. That sounds like optimizing longevity stuff, and I'm actually not here for that particular. Philosophically,
yeah,
I'm not interested in ultimate optimization of all the areas of life because I think it can get a bit disordered. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, and I think the thing that's reassuring. Maybe it doesn't feel reassuring, but like, so say you're like, now I've heard this thing from Joan, and but like, what if I never get it right or something? Like, the good news is your body's going to let you know. She already did let you know. So like, your body is your partner. Yeah. And like, that's where we go, and like, oh no, it's such an inconvenience when our bodies are noisy towards us, but it's the most beautiful gift that they give us as our only constant companion in this life. They are the capacity holders, right? They're the ones that are going to say, "Ooga, help. We need surge capacity met," right? And so you can trust that perhaps then your conversations can become more nuanced. So it doesn't have to be like 5-alarm fire to get you to listen. You can be in a more detailed, nuanced conversation over time where like, hey, okay, so like both my eyelids are twitching. What do you think? Or whatever. You can start taking like more subtle signs as the canaries in the coal mine of like, okay, I'm at least not gonna say yes to any new things. Baby steps.
Totally. And that's a real life example because I texted Joan once this summer and was like, my eye's been twitching for like 2 weeks straight. Do you think that means anything?
Yes, it used to be mine for sure. It's like a very stress-based thing.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you. Do you have any final words of wisdom you'd love to leave us with today?
Oh, just like if you heard anything in our conversation, found it relatable, but feel like I'm a hopeless case, like you're not. If you found it relatable, that means you're not. Because there's something in you. And all you need to do is like one small step, even if it's just noticing your capacity. You don't have to change anything, but instead just be like, I wonder how overcapacity I am today. Ooh, 150, 120. Like just getting some awareness of that can be the first step. And that is everything. Because you actually can't do the rest of the work if you don't first like recognize that you have capacity and what that feels like to you. So start there. And then like, as you start to notice that, I just find that subtle changes will start to happen. And if you ever want help, you can call me up or join my coaching program, and I'm happy to have you.
Absolutely. No, and honestly, I identify with that because I feel like I went from maybe like 175 to 150. So
congratulations.
We're doing it.
That's amazing. That's 25%. So like,
yeah, that's
hello?
True. Exactly. I did find the 25% somewhere.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at FrancisMayMD. Check out our website, hippocratic-collective.com for more shows and content like this. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Surgeon Interrupted. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, you are not hopeless. You can create space to check out Joan and all of her incredible work.
Yay!
Woohoo!